This is Impact Economy, the female frontier, where we talk with career women to determine the challenges they face and the risks they take. Being a woman in today's working world comes with many challenges, but these women think beyond themselves to connect their career to meaningful social impact. Hi everyone, if you don't know me yet, my name is Siona Mehta and I'm a high school student. Today we have Karishma Patwa, a cardiologist from Manhattan. I interviewed her on August 2nd, where she told me all about her role and the difficulties that she had to face to get there. So, can you tell us about your current role and how you got there?
So I am currently a cardiologist in a private practice here in Manhattan. So it came with a lot of schooling. I went to high school, I went to college, I got a master's degree, went to medical school for 4 years, and then afterwards I did my residency in internal medicine, and then subsequently a fellowship in general cardiology, non-invasive cardiology. And then I've been at my current role for about 2 years.
2 years, okay. What first sparked your interest in your field or industry?
So I really enjoyed science when I was younger, around your age, growing up. And, it's one of the paths I pursued when I was going to college and I was pre-med. I also, explored other pathways, and I did realize that I really do like science, especially, I was enjoying anatomy, physiology, which are more of the human sciences. And that's kind of what led me to, start medical school. I didn't necessarily realize I wanted to go into cardiology until way, way later. I would say maybe my second year of residency. Once I got exposure to all of the different fields and the different, specialties, I realized I really liked cardiology.
What specifically sparked your interest in cardiology?
So, when we were doing cardiology when I was in medical school and subsequently in residency, I really liked that it was, preventative, a procedural field, so lots of surgeries involved, as well as, being able to see patients in the office, being able to go to the hospital and see patients. But I also like to focus a lot on prevention more than anything else.
Do you do a lot of the procedures, or are you more in the medicinal department?
I'm more in the medical field. When you're training, you actually get exposed to everything. And I realized that one of my true passions was being in the office and really, having those connections with patients and being able to form those long-lasting relationships. So right now, I'm in the office 100% of the time, and then whenever my patients need procedures, which not going to hopefully they know, I do send them to the hospital.
Okay. So what challenges have you faced as a woman in your career, but also in general, and how did you navigate them?
I would say the biggest challenge, especially, when I was a little bit younger than I am now, was just the nonstop schooling, the training, while you're seeing all your peers kind of go up and, be able to accelerate in their careers when they're in their 20s, when you're still in school and you're still doing training, and you're like, hey, is there an end of the light here? Or light at the end of the tunnel, I should say. But I would say, once you're in training, it is a competitive field. And, when I was actually in my fellowship, we had 8 general fellows, and I was the only female out of all 8 of them. And in the whole program, I was the only female out of 30 of them for, probably a year and a half. So, it's a little bit tough to, stick to your guns, make sure your voice is being heard, and more importantly, make sure that you're getting the same opportunities that everybody else is. But, I would say the most important thing is to kind of find 1 or 2 people in the field, whether they're male or female, and, have them advocate for you.
Okay. Similar to that, have you had any mentors or role models that maybe shaped your path?
Absolutely. I would say that in each level of my career, there was always somebody who was advocating for me, who I could go to with my problems. I would say most recently, my fellowship program that I finished 2 years ago, I had one female physician who I would go to with all my problems, just my concerns, things that I felt were not going the way I wanted them to go. And she was very helpful because she had come up through the same process, and, she was able to guide me and help me navigate the system a little bit better.
That's great. How do you define success, personally and professionally?
That's a complicated question. It's different things for different people, and I feel like every year that changes a little bit for me. When I was younger and trying to come up through the ranks, it was all about professional success and, what grades was I getting? what boards was I passing, what, residency did I get into, what fellowship did I get into, what opportunities, what publishing I was doing for my papers. Now that I'm a little bit more established in my career, it's more, I think success is more financial, but also more about, work-life balance and, hey, like, is this where I want to be at this age with my career and my personal life? So, it's something that I reassess constantly, just to see, am I happy? Is this where I want to be? Is this what I want to be doing? And nobody's job is perfect. You're not going to be happy every single day. But as long as you're moving like towards an upward trajectory, I think you're in good shape.
What made that change for you from going from just always wanting professional success to also valuing your personal life?
I think, it started coming over the last couple of years when I became established. And, at this point, I think I'm very happy where I am professionally. There's always room for growth. But, I don't feel like there's things left on the table still left to be accomplished. And maybe, that'll change in a few years and I'll go back to wanting to focus 100% professionally. But I would say over like last year, it's changed a little bit where I'm like, okay, I've been here for a year and a half. I feel pretty confident with what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis. Of course, there's room for growth. There's always help to be, asked for. But I'm like, okay, I feel pretty established. I can, clock out when I need to and then go about living the rest of my life.
Similar to that, as a medical professional, how do you manage that work-life balance and avoid burnout?
It's tough. It's tough because, I think there's this idea out there that you should work smart but not hard. And I think in most fields that's actually impossible. You're going to need to work smart and hard. There's no way to kind of cut corners in a lot of these things. So I think trying to navigate and say that, hey, I actually don't need to put in the 5 hours tonight. I just do 1 hour and be equally successful. I think it's a little bit, misleading. But I think doing things at the right time. So when I'm studying for boards or when I was studying for boards, it's okay, 100% I'm studying for boards. I'm not, trying to do 100 things at the same time. But then once that's over, you can focus on other things and focus on the things that you want to do.
Really insightful. And what's a decision or a moment that significantly shaped your career?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
What's one decision or one moment that you think significantly shaped your career?
Oh, that's a hard question to answer. I do think it's a lot of little decisions made along the way, more than one major decision. I would say the turning point, though, is when I did my residency in Long Island. I was thinking I would stay in Long Island for the rest of my training as well. And then I ended up moving to Brooklyn and moving to the city for the rest of my training. I was a little bit apprehensive because I was like, oh, now I got to get to a whole new place, a whole new program, new people. But it was a challenge, and I took it on, and it was very, very difficult the first year. But I actually am glad because I feel like had I not made this change, I wouldn't have seen, what city medicine was like compared to suburban medicine and how different systems work. And I had the opportunity to work for a city hospital, a state hospital, federal hospital, and private hospitals. And I kind of decided that I like the private practice around the best. And that's how I kind of got into Manhattan and started working here.
Okay, that's really cool. What's a misconception that people often have about people or women specifically in your line of work?
I think, there's this misconception a little bit that women have to be, tougher, or that they have to, be more aggressive and rude to hold leadership positions. I think that is a misconception out there. We can say the same things or do the same things that our male counterparts do, and we're judged a little bit more harshly for it. But you realize at the end of the day that, you have a job to do, and sometimes it doesn't matter what people think about you. But if you feel like in your head that you're doing your job correctly, that you're treating people who work for you fairly, I don't think it's something that we have to worry about too much.
So what advice would you give to women that are on a similar path as you? Maybe not in the medical field, but trying to climb the career ladder like you did.
I think, hard work, working smart, of course, but hard work is very important. When you're in the early stages of your career, it's important to show your dedication, your tenacity, the fact that you're willing to put in the hours. You don't want to be the kind of person who comes in every day and it's like, all right, I'm clocking out at the end of the day. That's it. Because you've done your job at that point, but you're not growing. And that's the most important thing. And, take every step of your career, whether you're getting a promotion or you're changing jobs, things like that. Take it as a learning opportunity. And, when you're younger, you're going to make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. But that's kind of your practice round, right? So when you get older, you're able to be a little bit more established. And then you have all these experiences that you can learn from.
What kind of impact or legacy do you hope to leave in your industry or your community?
I hope to leave, at least for the people who come behind me. Cardiology is a very male-dominated field. I would say there's probably 15 to 20% are women. I hope that people can see what we're doing and what I'm doing and say that, hey, it's actually not that bad. She seems to be able to do it in a good way, in an efficient way, and she's able to have a personal life and be happy and things like that. And hopefully that they'll want to follow in footsteps.
That's beautiful.
Oh.
And so specifically for, being in the STEM fields, what kind of emerging technologies or trends are you excited about?
I'm actually quite excited about AI coming out. A lot of the conferences I go to, they're starting to roll out new AI programs, and people are very scared of AI. I understand that. But I think it's important to kind of embrace it and use it in our day-to-day lives and use it to help us so we can be more efficient, so we can spend, especially for people in medicine, be able to spend more time with patients and less time doing, computer work, administrative work, things like that.
And based on that, how do you stay current or learning in your field when all of this new technology is coming out so quickly?
It's tough. I try to go to conferences at least once a year. We have, our national conference, so I do that. We have newsletters and things like that come out, but it does take very active effort, to keep up with the technology, to keep up with the societies that are rolling out new information, 10 articles a day. It's not possible to know everything, but, you do your best.
So, if you don't mind, is there a chance that you could walk us through a typical day-to-day in your life?
Sure. So I start my patient day at 9 a.m. So I usually leave my house around 8:15, 8:30. I get to work by 9. I do have a pretty large team that I work with, so I work with about 12 different people. I'm, mostly in a supervisory capacity at this point. Between 9 to 5, we see a bunch of patients. We're running testing in the background. We're doing lots of imaging. I'm kind of managing throughout. I'm going to patient rooms, things like that, from 9 to 5, essentially. And then after I'm done with work, I have a bunch of studies and imaging testing and things like that we've done during the day that I have to review and go over and sign off on. So I do that for, between 5 to 6:30, 7 sometimes. And then I come home. When I can, I try to exercise. It doesn't happen often, or I meet up with friends or something like that, just to kind of unwind at the end of the day. And then I go to sleep.
How do you measure impact in your role? Maybe not personal because you have a large team, but
it's nice to see kind of in a private practice setting, because it's a little bit easier to measure that impact when your patients are happy, they're coming back, they are very thankful to you for what you've done for them. A nice thing that I always like to see is that, hey, I was referred here by my sister or by my cousin, and it's like, oh, okay, so that person, liked the care that we were providing enough to recommend someone to us, so that's always a good thing. And just seeing happy faces all around, which is good.
Okay, so that was most of the questions that I have for you, but there's one left, and it's either what is the best career advice you've ever received, or if you want to leave any career advice for anybody watching.
Ooh. Best career advice I've ever received. Interesting. I would say it is to, and maybe it's a little controversial, but don't take criticism from someone you would not go to for advice.
Ooh.
Meaning, I see your meaning that, when you're going through your career, and more when you're, working versus studying, you're going to have a lot of people be like, oh, you shouldn't have done this, you shouldn't have done that, I wouldn't have done it this way. But everyone thinks differently. And there's not one right way to do everything. And sometimes people are, no, 100% of the people are not going to like what you're doing all of the time. But if you like what you're doing and the people that you respect and you go to for advice and you go to for counsel think that you're on the right path, then you probably are.
Well, thank you so much for joining me and for imparting your words of wisdom on everybody. And I really appreciate you taking the time out of your very busy schedule to come and talk with us. So thank you so much.
Of course, you're welcome.
That was Karishma Patwa, an awesome role model that even if we're not in the medical field, we can all look up to. I think that my key takeaway from this interview was that everyone has a varied perspective, and we can't take to heart every single piece of criticism that we get from everyone. So it's important to go with your gut and do what you feel is right. Thank you so much for joining us this time on Impact Economy, the Female Frontier. Looking forward to seeing you again as we interview more powerful women in business.